again. Right. Hi guys, welcome to Bobsy Bounce. I'm Bobs.
I'm Bouncer.
And we've got Kainaat in the office and in the studio at the same time today, yeah? Kainaat.
Hi. Hi guys.
The myth, the legend. Right.
The myth, the legend.
How are we doing, you okay?
I'm good, guys. How are you guys?
Good.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Right, I'm going to say this again here because the reason why we're laughing, right, is because everything messed up and we had to start again. Right? Why tell
It happens,
lie?
it happens,
They didn't even
guys.
get me
It
Red Bull,
happens.
guys.
Yeah, and honestly,
Cost of living crisis.
and you know something, we actually, we were coming out with very intellectual like conversations, and we were talking about like, you know, the cure to like disease and
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Cures cancer. all
everything,
that
and
stuff.
but
Yeah,
it's all gone
100%.
now. So
Yeah.
sorry guys, we're not gonna
Well,
we're not gonna talk about that again.
It'll be in some junk mails.
We're
We
not,
might release that. It's
We're
like
not-
bloopers, maybe.
Bloopers.
Bloopers.
but let's go back to the conversation that we were having, right?
Okay.
Which is basically the fact that I love your content.
Thank
We
you.
both love the
Appreciate it.
content.
Thank you.
And the fact that you're a very controversial person on TikTok and also a woman and an Asian woman
Yeah.
doing this, right?
South Asian community, big up.
Exactly, right? So, yeah, so once again, I'm going to ask you, so like, what made you get into this kind of thing? Something that you've always been doing, or...
Well, I've been on social media for quite a long time. I've always been like, I think it first started off when I was in college. I studied government and politics. I studied citizenship. So I think like for me, I kind of just had that political voice. I think a lot of people were intrigued as to, you know, what my political views were. And I've always been there. Like I've been to loads of demonstrations growing up. So I think that was the grounding point for me. I think just having those opinions and being out there in terms of politically. I think a lot of people at the beginning were like quite shocked. They were like, who's this brown girl shouting at like a prime minister? So yeah, I guess that was the kind of founding from it.
So you're like one of those like really like strong kind of a powerful woman.
Yeah, 100%.
woman
I wouldn't say I'm
empowerment.
a feminist. I mean, feminism is the dumbest thing to happen to women. Controversial, but you know. But I think, you know, a part of me, I've always been very like loud and proud, and I've always had like very strong opinions. And I
Hang on a
think
second. Why is feminist or feminism the dumbest thing to ever happen?
I just feel like we could have been stupid and played dumb and sat at home and watched like Oprah. You know, we could have just had the easy life. Why do we have to sit there and be like, I want equal pay? Like
No, I do think there's, you know what, we're kind of going into this straight away, yeah, into the heavy. But you know something, feminism, I think that is very, what's the term, man? Like, you know, like
It's very broad.
No, there's double standards to it.
Oh yeah, of
Okay,
course.
like for example, like I watched this comedian. It's called Bill Burr, amazing comedian, right? And he goes that, you know, for example, it goes it's women that are not supporting other women. Okay, I'll ask you right now, yeah. Name me a famous footballer.
Ronaldo,
yeah. Okay. Name me a famous woman footballer.
Gary.
Right. You know, and at the end of the day, right, I can go to so many feminists right now, yeah, and I say, you know what, name me famous footballers, okay? Oh, they're not getting equal pay, this is that, whatever. What is you guys that are doing it? Get out there and promote it.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Fight for it, okay, properly. Go, okay, if you're not gonna fight for it, right, go and watch the game.
Yeah, true. I agree with that.
Why is it right that, you know, you can go to Old Trafford, it's got a 75,000 people capacity and it's completely full on a shittest game in the world.
Yeah.
And then there'll be Manchester United women playing, or let's say like a little
And the
league.
stadium's empty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there'll be 20,000 people,
Yeah, it's true.
right? So if you really want to support your women, okay, well, support your women.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Double standard on that one.
Yeah, I think for me, like when you think of the term feminism, like obviously the term feminism is equality. You know, like it's equality for women in terms of like, you know, pay and stuff like that. I just think for me, like in the generation that we live in, the term feminism, I think when you see it from a male perspective, it's more radical. Like people, when they think of feminism, they think of like, oh, this woman, she just wants to be above all men. No, that's not the case. Like we're just asking for our equal right. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people get that mixed up, and the clarity of the definition is not out there. For my personal opinion, like I look at it from an Islamic point of view. So I think for me, like when I see feminism, I think, okay, you know, there's certain reasons why a woman is created in a certain way and a man is created in a certain way, you know, and I think there's blue jobs and the pink jobs.
Yeah.
I do believe in that theory. You know, there's certain jobs that were created for men and there's certain jobs that were created for women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I see, you know, Islamically, right, it doesn't actually believe in equal rights.
Yeah, no, there's no equal. That's what I'm trying to say.
What it says is there's rights for women,
Yeah.
and there's rights for men.
Yeah, and
Because
if you
they're
actually look in
different.
Islam, like there's more rights for women than there are for men.
Of course they are.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. For example, if I earn money, right, and if I go home and my wife says, right, I want all your
She's
wage.
taking all of it, mate.
Yeah.
No, if she goes, I want
Like,
all
give
your
me
wage.
every last damn you
I have
got.
to give it to her.
Yeah.
Right, and guess what? You know, if she goes out to work, I have literally no.
Say over that.
I can't take her money.
Gonna right over that, yeah.
I've got no right over her money.
Oh, is it getting that hard at home?
Of course it is, man. Bad news. You know what I mean? Broke all the time, man.
Yeah, like I think for me, like the purpose is like obviously to find a partner, a spouse, someone that I can spend the rest of my life with, all that good stuff, someone who's my best friend. But I think it's harder when you meet people, unserious people on the app, and I think a lot of like South Asian Muslim girls can relate to that, or probably just Muslim girls in general who are using the app. I think there's a lot of time wasters, there's a lot of people who aren't serious. For example, like I'll give you an example. I went on a date roughly about 3 weeks ago, and I very much stated in my bio, like, you know, where I'm from back home, like, you know, in Pakistan, because that's like one of the questions that most Pakistani people on the app
Where are you
ask.
from back home?
So my mum's from a place called Kainaat, which is just near Peshawar, and my dad's from Rawalpindi, Islamabad.
Okay, same as us. Well, me, I'm from.
Yeah. So so that's my family background, and so we were speaking with this guy. He worked for KPMG, so he had a pretty decent job. He was an operations manager. Speaking for a week, decided to go on a date, like went for some food, went to Saku in Leeds, and yeah, like the date was good. Like I thought I got along with him really well. And then post date, like 2 days later, I received a text saying, I think you're a really lovely girl, but I've spoken to my mum, or I've discussed it, or I just think that I need to be someone who's Midbury.
All right.
And I was just like, in my head, I was like, but you read on my profile already my background, and you knew where I was from.
So just to put context in that, people that they might not know. So Mirpur is a city in Kashmir.
Yeah.
Azad Kashmir, yeah. So
It was a different part of Pakistan.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just felt like, well, that was a waste of my time. Like, you've just wasted a week of my life.
And you got on with them as well.
Yeah, and I just thought, like, for that little semantic, you threw away something that could have potentially been so good for you. So, yeah.
The thing is, it's like in Asian families, a lot of like older generations, they still believe in that, you know, or this person needs to be Mirpuri or Kashmiri or Lahori, whatever. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But we should go past that stage now, you know,
100%.
because
I'm really, really blessed. Like, alhamdulillah, I've got everything in every walk of life. I've got Jamaican,
Yeah.
I've got Moroccan, I've got Egyptian in my family, you know.
Yeah.
I've got, like, people who are from Indonesia, Singaporean, Filipino. Like, the list goes on. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'm so blessed that I've never had a judgmental family like that. Like, my family have only cared about, okay, if they're Muslim and they're a good person, that's it. Like, my previous marriage, like, my ex-husband, he was Bangladeshi descent. So for me, like, I never had that prejudice. Okay, you know, obviously a bit because it's unknown. Like, my mum was a bit hesitant, but then she got over it and she was like, you know what, like, as long as they're Muslim, you know, they read the
Yeah,
Quran,
exactly,
like,
yeah.
what more do you want?
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, I think that stigma with going out of culture, especially like with probably South Asian cultures, I think it's more so predominant. I think, you know, we just need to live in a generation where, like, you know, there's bigger problems out there, and you're fighting over little semantics over
Yeah.
somebody's culture, somebody's, you know, background. I think that's also really, like, detrimental for future generations. It's actually promoted in Islam to go into interracial marriages.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people like they still go with the caste system as well, or you if you're a certain caste, they won't marry you.
Honestly,
You know what I
do
mean?
you know what?
It
It's
still
still weird
goes on,
when I
which
hear
is-
this.
yeah.
Because I feel like growing up in Yorkshire, like, I've heard about the caste system, but growing up, I didn't even know what caste was. And then someone was like, I was like, Mum, where are you from? And she's like, you don't know? And I was like, do you know? And she goes, yeah, we're Mughal. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, why are you even asking me that question? And I was like, because someone asked me. And I was like, because that's a bit outdated. And that's for my mum, who's born and bred in Pakistan, to say that to me, you know? So for me, I was like, it's so weird because I've never grown up in that culture, like, you know, for someone to care about caste and stuff like that, because I just think it's so, like futile to have that sort of mentality,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
No, I think, you know, also in this country, I think you should leave caste aside. Maybe it's relevant in Pakistan, in India, whatever. I'll give an example. Right? I remember growing up, and same thing with me, like, you know, oh, what caste are you, this and that. I didn't know what I was, right? So then, and I used to look at these people who were asking me this question, and they were a certain caste. I'm not going to mention what it is because I don't want to offend anybody, right? But they were a certain caste, but it's like a higher caste, right?
Okay.
But all of their women, okay, when I used to go to school, and I used to go to school in Bradford 3, they used to be dinner ladies,
Okay.
Okay, and they used to be cleaners.
Okay.
So what's happened to your caste? Okay, because if you're a cleaner in Pakistan, apparently it's a very low caste. Shall I be honest? If you're a cleaner, bloody hell, hats off to you, because it's hard work.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen some of the cleaners in Pakistan, mate, I'm telling you, they work their socks off. And you know what? Very honest people, okay? But then I'm thinking, so you are apparently this caste that you're saying that you are, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to
You sat
mention
on, like, the high horse
right,
or
yeah. I
whatever.
don't want to mention what caste you are, but
Yeah.
you're this caste, right? And but the job that you're doing in England is the same as what the lower caste will be doing in Pakistan.
Yeah, it's true.
So, where's your caste?
Yeah, it's like, what kind of relevancy does that hold in the UK?
It
You
doesn't.
know what I mean? It doesn't.
No one gives a shit.
doesn't.
You know what I mean? You know, no one
Over here, mate, money talks.
Yeah,
yeah, money talks.
And bullshit takes a hike. Straight up.
It's true.
But yeah, I want to talk about, like, you mentioned your husband a little bit there as well.
Oh, my ex-husband. Let's
Yeah,
make that
sorry,
very clear.
apologies.
I'm divorced.
Ex.
Sorry,
Ex.
apologies. Yeah, so with this ex-husband of yours, like, what did you have to go through a divorce or?
Yeah, so I was married for 5 months. I think people have taken shits longer than that, but yeah.
5 months?
Yeah. But like, yeah, so I think, like, so I'll give you a bit of a background of how my marriage even happened and how
Hang on a
it ended
second,
up so
5
badly.
months you said in your honeymoon period.
I didn't even have a honeymoon. I didn't even have a period of honeymoon.
Okay,
There
okay, go
You're
on.
Mackie's man.
was the only day I was happy with my marriage was my wedding day.
Wow.
Literally, that was the only day I was happy.
So tell us about this.
Okay, so so it was COVID. Year is 2020. The world is going to shit. Everyone's worried. Everyone's panicking. I literally had my mum in my ear saying, "You're 23. When I was your age, I had 2 kids. What do you have?" And I'm like, "A peaceful night's sleep." You know what I mean? And then my mum was in my ear, and she was like, "You need to get married. You need to get married. You need to get married." Like most Asian girls, when they start hitting over the age of like 21, I think the pressure that we get is just so immense.
which is
you know?
appalling, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's so immense, and it feels almost suffocating, you know. And then when you don't feel like you have an edge way to go, it's really hard. And I think because I was living independently at the time at university, I think my mum felt that pressure. My mum's a single parent. My dad passed away when I was like 14, so you know I don't have any brothers. I'm the oldest daughter. I think she felt a lot of like societal pressure as well to like, you know, get me married and kind of just do her zimmerdari and, you know, kind of her responsibility and get it all done over and done with. So I was on Muzz, and obviously I was swiping or whatever. I was like going through the profiles, and I looked at this profile and I was like, okay, let me just check him out. So I looked and I was like, 5'7", not my type. I was like, divorced, not my, oh my god. And then I was like, has children as well. I was like, oh, shiz, right? And then he put like a quote up in his profile that caught my attention. It was an Islamic quote, like, I want a wife like Khadija. And I was like, okay, like, you know, okay, maybe he has some like religious kind of inkling, and maybe he's got some religious background. He had quite a big beard, so I was like, okay, he seems like he's religious or whatever, and that kind of appealed to me. I thought, okay, you know what, he's on Deen, so I was like, okay, let's see where it goes. So I matched with him, despite not being my actual physical type or anything on paper as well. And we started speaking back and forth, and then he agreed to meet. So we ended up meeting, and we went to the beach. We just had like a good laugh, whatever. But there was certain red flags that I should have saw back then. But I think because I was young and I was naive, I didn't see them. So a part of me was like, you know what? I think red was my favorite color, so I just completely ignored them. We got in the car, and we parked up, obviously, to park at the beach. And he said, can you get some cash out from the glove box? So I thought, like, it's going to be like 10, 20 pound. There was like 10 grand stacked cash there.
This is on the first meeting, by the way.
This is on the first meet. And I literally looked at him and I was like, you're from Bradford. Are you a drug dealer? Like, literally, that's literally what came out of my mouth. I was like, are you a drug dealer? And he was like, no. And I was like, 10 grand cash? Like, what are you part of Money Heist? Like, what is going on?
Were you impressed? Be honest.
No, I was not impressed because I come from like a decent family myself, so
Yeah.
money's never really kind of been a thing. But for me, I was just like shocked, like, why are you carrying around that much cash?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was more so like I was just shocked as
Are you in,
like
are you in the run or something like that?
yeah, like
Yeah.
are you Pablo Escobar's boy? Like, what's going on? Do you know what I mean? So then I said to him, like, you know, what's this? And he goes, oh, it's just my business partner's deposit, like, you know, it's his share or whatever, or he gave me some cash, I need to go put it in the bank.
Okay.
And in my head I was like, but you're dipping into that. And he's like, oh, don't worry, when I get my other money I'll put it back in or whatever. So anyway, I seen this cash, and then He paid for the parking, whatever. And then, like, we were on the beach, and he's pulled out his phone, and he's taking a Snapchat, and he's grabbed me, and he's like, I'm with my girl. I'm with my girl, guys. Look at my girl. I'm cringing internally. I'm like, I met you 5 minutes ago. Like, what the hell? You know what I mean? And then I was like, okay, this is so, like, peculiar. So then, anyway, I thought, okay, maybe he just wants to flex. I mean, I'm a pretty girl, so, like, he just wants to flex that he's with a pretty girl. So then I was like, okay, whatever. And I let it be, and then he dropped me back off, and no, as he was dropping me back off, he was like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, I'm going back to my mum's. And he was like, where's your mum's? It's like, in Leeds. And he was like, oh, okay, like, why don't I drop you off? Like, why are you going to get a train? And I said, because, like, I don't know you that well. And he was just like, no, let me drop you off. Like, why are you going to get a train? It's COVID, all of that. So I was like, he's got a valid point. I thought, okay, well, worst comes to worst, he's just a lift, right? So, so I was just like, okay. So I packed my stuff, got in the car. He dropped me off, and I did the rookie mistake. Listen to this, girls. Don't do this. When you're meeting a guy for the first time, do not let him come to your house, because he'll remember that shit. You know?
Oh, shit. So you knew you'd okay.
So
yeah.
He dropped me off right outside my mum's house, and that was it.
So hang on, did he pick you up from your house? From your house?
So no, I was at uni. I was in Preston.
All
so
right.
he drove. He broke lockdown rules. I thought he was a keeper.
So hang on, so but
So he was from Bradford.
Yeah.
He drove to Preston because I was at uni there.
Yeah.
And then I was going back from Preston to my mum's in Leeds.
In Leeds, yeah.
And basically that had happened, and he dropped me off or whatever.
Yeah.
So then I thought it's appropriate time to sit my mum down and have this conversation with her. So I sat my mum down. I was like, by the way, I've started speaking to a guy. I just met him today. I don't know how things are going to go, but, by the way, mum, like, I'm already trying to put my mum off him. I'm like, he's divorced, he's got a kid, and I was like, he's Bengali, like, and I've got, like, my mum is Pakistani, like, creme de la creme Pakistani. Yeah. So I thought, she's going to be like, no. She's like, oh, just see how it goes. And I just thought in my head, I thought, shit. How do I don't like him. Like, he was very typical Bradford, like, in it kuzi yara, like, kasme bro, like, and complete opposite of what I am, like, because I grew up predominantly in Leeds. Like, I was born and raised in Bradford till I was like 9, but then I lived predominantly most of my life in Leeds, and I never got exposed to that culture of Bradford until I went to college.
Would you say part of you kind of liked the way he was?
It wasn't that. I think it was just, I think he had the gift of the gab. Like, he knew the right things to say at the right time. You know what I mean? And I think he spoke to that very insecure girl in me, like, constantly, like, validifying my feelings and, saying that you're not crazy if you feel like this. And he was just an amazing talker.
Player, basically.
Yeah, and I think, like, and I was 23, I'm 26 now. Like, at that time, I think a lot of me, and I was really insecure. Like, it was COVID, I put on a lot of weight. I thought, like, nobody's gonna marry me because I'm quite a, like, curvaceous girl, and I thought, oh, nobody's gonna get with me because I'm a big girl.
I think everybody put on weight during COVID, by the way.
Yeah, that helps me out. That helps me out.
Genuinely, I swear to God, man. Yeah. But,
see how much weight I put on.
Yeah. Hey, you've lost it now. Big up to you.
Oh, thanks, man. Still in process, yeah.
But yeah, and then that happened. So then I spoke to my mum and I sat down, and then the next day, he's ringing out my phone. He's ringing and ringing and ringing, and Mum's like, who the hell's calling in? I was like, remember the guy I told you about? And she was like, okay. She goes, answer it. Oh no.
For a mum.
Oh no. So then I've answered the call, and Mum goes, hello, assalamu alaikum. And then he's like, oh shit, who's this? And then my mum was like, she goes, yes, can I help you? You're ringing my daughter's phone. And he was like, yeah, auntie, I was just wondering if I could take your daughter out for dinner. I'll make sure she gets home at a decent time, because I've got a strict mum, like, I'm not allowed out the house after 11, right? So, and and he was like, I'll make sure she's home at a decent time and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, don't worry, I've got sisters of my own, like, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, go, like, see how it's like. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no, I don't want to go. Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, God, okay, fine. So I ended up going for dinner with him. Still felt the same that I did the first time I met him.
Where did you go this time?
We went to Saffron on, where do we go? Saffron on...
Motor Street.
White Abbey Road?
Oh, Saffron's,
The Iranian place.
What, with 10 grand, you should have taken it to Ritz and Mayfair, man.
No, boo! Remember that?
No, but anyway, sorry. I don't know why he was borrowing that money,
Oh, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, so we went, had food, whatever. Mum was like, how'd you feel? And I was like, nah, like, I'm not feeling it, you know. And then she was like, why? She goes, what's wrong with you? Why are you being so picky for? And then I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not feeling it. And she's like, he's a good guy. Like, you're going to miss out. And I was like, nah, I'm not feeling it, you know. And, you know, when you have a gut feeling, follow it. Follow it. Because it's so important you follow that gut feeling. And my mom was like, you know, leave it. And then he was like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? The next day after. And I was like, I'm going back to Preston.
Persistent guy, isn't it?
Yeah, very persistent. And he was like, what are you doing after? And I was like, oh, I'm going to go back to Preston. And he was like, oh, well, why don't we meet up and we'll go Trafford Centre, we'll go grab a bite to eat. I'm like, no, like, thank you so much. Like, I'm just going to get a train, but I appreciate it.
But by the way, you know, at this point, did he tell you that he was working or anything like that?
So he told me he had businesses. He was opening, you know, back in COVID, there was this whole craze of starting drive-through shisha lounges. So he was going to do like an American style, like with American style, like burgers and
like
fries, like a diner kind
yeah.
of thing, but like a drive-through with shisha. So he's told me he did that. He told me he was a qualified network engineer. And yeah, and then he told me all these things. He told me that he'd been previously married. Obviously, I figured that out from the profile. He told me he had a son as well. He had a 6 or 7 year old son at the time. And that didn't bother me because I've always been of the ideology that, you know, if a kid can receive more love, why not? You know, why not? Like, you know, I've always felt like that, like very strong. Like all my friends thought I was crazy when I always used to say like, I don't mind marrying someone who's divorced and has a child. And they were like, but that was your first marriage. And I was like, yeah, why not? It's Sunnah. Why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, I've always had that sort of perception. So when he told me that, it wasn't a shock to me. I wasn't scared. And he was quite shocked that I was so accepting of it, you know? And yes, then anyway, so I was saying to my mum, like, look, he's saying this. She goes, go, have fun, like, see how it is. She goes, you can't judge someone by meeting them twice. And I thought, you know what, Mum's got a valid point. You can't judge someone by meeting them only twice. So we went, and this is where I kind of started thinking, like, this is getting intense now. So we went to Trafford Centre. And
this is literally the third date now.
The third date. So 3 days in a trot, right, on a row.
God.
So we've gone to Trafford Centre, and I thought, okay, well, we're here now, so I might as well do a bit of shopping. So I've started picking up things. You know, we're in Selfridges. I picked up a few things for myself, whatever. And I've gone to pay, and he's just tapped his card. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm a very independent girl. Like, I've been on my own since I was, like, pretty much 16. So I've kind of always just paid my way through life. For him to tap his card, I was like, what are you doing? Like, that's so weird to me, because I'm not your girlfriend, I'm not your wife. Why are you going ahead and doing these things for me? And you know, now I regret it. I think I should have picked up like a Chanel handbag or something.
I want to say inside thinking,
you know what I mean?
God, yeah.
But yeah, at the time he did that, and I was like, what are you doing? He was like, oh, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. And then we went for some food. He dropped me back off. And in that night, I was going to text him and say, you know what, thank you for everything. Please send me your details. I want to send you the money back, but I want nothing to do with you. So I've cracked on, started doing my laundry as you do when you get back home, sorting my flat out, whatever. And then I get a phone call from my mum in the evening. And my mum was like, you know, wala guy tha? And I was like, what guy came? And she's like, that boy, Bengali guy. And I was like, what?
Came to your house?
Yeah. And she's like, he came to, yeah, she's like, he came to the house. And I was like, why? She's like, oh, he asked for your rishta. So for people that don't know what rishta is like a hand in marriage. And I was like, what? Like, are you, like, what? And I was just so confused. And then my mum was like, yeah. And I said, please tell me you said no. And my mum was like, no, I told him if he's serious about you, he has to bring your parents in 2 weeks. I thought, yes. I said, no guy in their sane right mind, after meeting you for 3 days straight, is going to bring his parents.
It's not a Shah Rukh Khan movie or something, you know?
Yeah, I thought, I'm not even
So
going to talk about it, you know what I mean? And then, yeah, he came with his family 2 weeks.
He did, oh my God.
And it was meant to be like a dua hair, like kind of like, you know, just kind of see where things go.
Like a meet and greet kind of thing,
families, yeah, like kind of thing. We were all sat in my mum's living room eating gulab jamun and ice cream, and I've turned around and he's on his knee proposing to me in front of my whole family. And I'm like,
I'm sorry, but that's cringe, man.
Some girls might, you know,
romantic.
they will love that.
They
They're like,
love that, yeah. Oh my God, romantic.
Romance. Yeah.
But I just felt like, oh my God, this is so intense. So like, all my family's looking at me, and I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I just thought, oh, screw it, go on then.
Go on then. Go on then.
So then, and I was like, what is it? And he goes, it's a diamond, it's silver. I was like, all right, go on then. I didn't even care. I was just like, you know what? Okay, fine. You know what? he wants to get
Realize.
married. He must be serious. You know, in my head, the what people don't understand is that people, when they say that to me, like how quickly you did it, is that you. For me, I thought if he's this serious about getting married to me, he must be genuinely wanting to get married and build a life
Yeah.
and stuff like that after going through a failed marriage, like, you know. So I thought, okay, that's fine. So then, obviously, the preps of like the wedding start coming into play. So for a month, he was amazing. Like for the first month, I would be like jump, and he'd be like, how high?
It is before the
Before the wedding, yeah.
Right, okay.
And he was amazing. Like he would come to my house. He'd help my mum out. Like, you know, growing up in a household where you don't, like, I lost my dad when I was 14, and we haven't had a man in our house since then. You know, my mum didn't get remarried. She put all her focus in us, you know, and I'm grateful for that. Like, I'm really grateful. Like, I could never thank my mum enough for the stuff that she's done for me and my sisters growing up. You know, it takes a strong woman to go through a loss of a husband and then raise 3 girls on your own
Big
in a
up to your
society
mum,
like
big
this.
up to your mum,
You know, and yeah, and then, you know, for him to come in and do that, it was nice. You know, like he would take my sisters out for food. You know, and he was building up that rapport for him to be that, like, sort of way. And, you know, he'd talk about Islam with my mum, and it was nice. It was a warm, like, heartwarming feeling, thinking, you know what, my mum finally can not worry about me as well, you know. And then a month before we got actually married, that's when everything went downhill. So, like, every week till I got married, I went to my mom and my dad's best friend, and I was like, I don't want to marry him, because he just turned on me so badly. Every week he would scream at me, shout at me, like, you know, say really horrible things, like, I can't be bothered, I can't be asked to do this. And I was like, whoa, this is a 360. And I just kept saying to my family, like, I don't want to marry him, I don't want to marry him, I don't want to marry him. And my family were like, you know, you're just going because it's so intense, because it's so quick, it's happening so quick, you have to understand the pressure that he's under, you're under a lot of pressure, you're both snapping at each other. And then what had happened is, like, you know, I think a part of me was like, oh, do I really want to go through and be with someone like this for the rest of my life? But then I thought, maybe my mom's right, maybe it's the pressure of everything, and, you know, everything else as well getting to me, the marriage being so quick. And yeah, literally like a week before we got married, I asked him, I said, I want to see what's in your bank account.
Okay.
I said, you know, you say you've got this job, you've got these businesses, how much have you got in your bank? And he goes, okay, I'll show you straight away. So he showed me, he had like 40 grand-ish in his account. I said, okay, what are you doing with this 40 grand? And he's like, okay, this is going to my business, 10 grand's going to my business, 10 I'm going to put away for a house depot, the other 20, we'll put another 10 for like a honeymoon fund, and the other 10, you know, we'll spend it on like the household, like sort of expenditure. So we decided, so I was living at Halls when I met him, and I was going into my final year of uni. And when I met him, I said to him, look, I don't want to live in Halls. I don't want, he was saying to me, the argument was that we kept having is that he wanted me to continue living in Halls, but him live at home with his mum in Bradford. And I said, well, that's not going to work. I'm a married woman. I don't want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want my own privacy.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I said, look, well, I've only got my final year of uni. I said, why don't we do this? I said, why don't we rent an apartment for the remainder of the final year? And then I said, after that, we can look for a house, maybe in Yorkshire somewhere, Leeds, Bradford, you know, Huddersfield, wherever, and, you know, possibly put a deposit down.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, yeah, that's like a good idea. But I made it very clear to him, even before I got married, I said, look, these are my expectations, and I want you to understand that. I said, in my final year of uni, I'm not going to work. I said, the only responsibility that you have is to go out there and make bread and provide money and bring food to the table. I said, I will cook, I will clean, I will do the laundry, I will do everything else. I said, all you have to go do is work.
And you know what? I think you're being very reasonable there.
And I said, because it's in my final year of uni as well. And I was like, look, I'm going to be studying, I'll be going to the library, but else I'm going to do all the housework. So he agreed to that. He was happy with that. And then obviously seeing his finances and stuff, and, you know, everything was correlating and everything was fine. But that same week, something wasn't right. So he was dropping me back off to Preston because I had to pack some stuff before the wedding. And what had happened is, he's like, oh, he loves shisha. So he was like, can we go get a quick pipe? So I was like, okay. So we ended up going to Phantoms in Leeds. And he had 2 phones. He had a normal, his normal, like, friends and family phone, and he had a business phone. And for once, he was on his personal phone a lot more than his business phone. That started setting off alarm bells in my head. And I thought, wait a minute. Why are you on your personal phone. You're always on your business phone doing something, but you're on your personal phone.
So you could just distinguish between which phone it was, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like one was an older iPhone and one was the latest iPhone at the time. His personal one was the latest iPhone. So what had happened is we were sat down in Van Ooms and he's put his personal phone down because he's got a phone call on his business phone. I've put my phone on top of his personal phone and grabbed the both and gone upstairs to the toilet, unlocked his personal phone, and all I see is messages from other women. Like him, well, not other women messaging him messaging other women, like popping up to their stories on Instagram. Oh, you look so beautiful, you look sexy, when can I take you on a date? Whilst he's engaged to me. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was so angry. I was like, in my head, I was like, do you know what you've got? Like, you know what I mean? I was so angry. And then I came downstairs and I threw the phone at him. And he was like, oh my God, what's happened? And I've walked out now and he's followed me. He's like, what's going on? Why are you causing a scene for? And I was like, get in the car. We'll talk about it. So I got in the car and we were speaking and basically he was like, oh, what's the problem? I said, listen, don't antagonize me. I said, you've got 10 seconds to come clean and tell me the truth. Oh, what do you mean tell me the truth? What do you mean tell me the truth? I was like, listen, I'm counting to 10 in my head. You've got it to tell me everything that is on your phone that I have seen. What's it about? Why are you doing it? Or they're just my mates, yeah, they're just my mates. What are you tripping for? They're my mates. Oh, they're your friends, are they? I said, you know, if I did that, how would you react? So why don't I do that? I said that to him. I said, why don't I do that? I said, why don't I message all the males that are on my social media and do the same thing that you've done? How would you like that? Oh, you're a slug. Why are you going to do that for? So when it comes to me, I'm a slug, but when you do it, it's acceptable. So that really pissed me off that he said that. And you know what the most embarrassing thing about it all? Like, none of those women replied.
No,
That's the biggest ick. Like, you know, like when nobody replied. Like, you popped up to women and they've seen it and they've left you a red. Sorry guys, that is beastie. Yeah, that is embarrassing. Yeah, that is embarrassing. Yeah. So then that happened, and then I was like, you know, like, how dare you do this to me? You know, I'm obviously quite upset and angry. Like, we're getting married next week, and you're doing this. And then he was like, oh, well, he just switched the topic, and he's like, so are you going to do it? Are you going to message those boys? I said, why? Like, you know, have I hit a nerve now, have I? He's like, yeah, if you're going to do that, then you know what? That just proves everything right. And I said, what do you mean everything right? He's like, oh, well, you know, that's why probably your dad died, because he couldn't take that he's left a sluggy daughter like you behind.
Wow. Fuck.
Yeah? And I was like, you what? You talking about my dead dad? I swear to God, I just punched him. I just punched him in the face. The thing is, like, I can take so much, but don't talk about my dead father. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that is my...
Yeah,
like,
that's low.
That is low blow, and that is, like below the belt.
Everyone's
you know?
got a limit. Everyone's got a
below
limit.
the belt.
Yeah.
Purely below the belt. And I was just like, you know what? I can't take this. So I did that. I've jumped out the car. I'm like, see ya. F you. Got out the car.
Yeah.
And then he's rang my mum. Auntie, she's hit me in the face. She's hit me in the face. Oh, my eyes messed up. She's hit me in the face. Mum's like, both of you get home. I'm refusing to go in the car now. I'm like, no, I'm not going in the car with him. I'm going to get an Uber home. Whatever. Mum's like, stop being silly. Just get in the car with him and come home. We'll sort this out. So I got home and my mum was like, you know, what was the issue? And this is what I've told her. This is what's happened. You know, I said I don't want to get married to him and stuff like that. Now, at that time, like, I think, you know, my mum felt a lot of pressure, you know, because everyone knew in my family, you know, like, sort of invites had already been sent out. A lot of people have already taken time off work. Everything's paid for, you know, marquee, food, everything, clothes, you know. A lot of money's been spent. A lot of time and effort has gone into it.
Yeah.
And I think my mum just thought, like, you know, this is salvageable. Like, it's just a small sort of tiff, you know. You might have got cold feet or whatever. And then I said, okay, fine. My mum was like, look, say sorry to him and say, like, touch the ground that, you know, we're going to, you know, do all that. You know, we're going to hit him again and stuff. Yeah. So I said, okay, fine. I forgive him and everything. Yeah. Then he turned around and said to my mum, actually, I don't want to marry her. Right? After everything my family went through, he turned around and said that. And literally, I felt so sorry for my mum because my mum literally, like, begged him and was like, don't do that to him. Don't do that to my daughter, please. Like, you know, everyone knows and stuff like that. Yeah. So anyway, the next week, my wedding week, it was all good until, like, certain red flags started happening again. And I had my layout of my wedding was that my mehndi was on a Friday, meant to have a gap in between. Sunday was meant to be my nikah. Now, what's happened is, on my mehndi day, he's rang my mum and said, look, I bought this brand new Mercedes. There's some guys after me. Does that sound so familiar, guys? There's a guy after me. There's some guys after me. They want to take my car. Can I leave it parked in your neighborhood or your area or where your house is? Mum's like, yeah, sure, of course, why not? So on my mehndi night, like my mehendi's all done, all the guests are kind of going. It's only just like home people, like my cousins and stuff.
Yeah.
And I get a phone call from my sister. She's like, yeah, like he's been kidnapped. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, he's been held at gunpoint and he's been kidnapped.
Flipping neck.
I'm like, what? Like, in my head, I'm like, what have I got myself involved in? You know? And I was just like, what the hell do I do now? All of a sudden, I've seen a fleet of cars and a Range Rover and loads of, like, Golfs and, you know, Shoguns, like, pull up to my area.
Yeah.
And I live in a very suburban, middle-class white area. Yeah. I'm like, what's
going on here?
What in the Pablo Escobar's going on, right? So then I've looked and I was like, what the hell? Then next minute, I've heard a car engine start. And then I see the car being driven. And I looked like a Bollywood scene. I was in my lenga get up, like I'm running like down the street, like behind this Range Rover, like, oi, stop, and like they're not stopping or whatever. Obviously, they're not gonna stop for me. I'm like, what the hell? Who's this guy, Julia? And then I was like, what the hell? Like, you know, whatever. And then, you know, I get a phone call from him, and I'm like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And he's like, look, they just wanted the car, and stuff like that. And then I remembered something. There was a watch that my dad gave me that was in that car. And I was like, oh my God, it's my ex. I was like, oh my God, there's a watch in there that dad gave me. And he was like, you know, I said, look, like, car, whatever, but I said that I want.
Yeah, you want it back, yeah.
I said, can you please speak to the people, whatever. He's like, look, it's a bit of a hot topic right now. I don't think I can. And so I was like, oh, I was really gutted about that. So then what happened is, obviously, my mum was like, look, you should just be grateful. Like, material things come and go.
Yeah.
As long as you got your life, that's the main thing, you know? I was like, oh my God, imagine, even before getting married, I'm widowed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was just like, that is not the one. So then what happened is, the day in between was meant to be like a day everyone can relax post Mehndi. And my mum was like, call his family and find out, you know, what's going on about the movie.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let me find out. So then there was two things that had happened that day that really... I just kind of had a bad taste, and I should have said no. So what happened, the first thing that happened is, he said, oh, I need to speak to you about your mahar. And I said, okay. I said, but that conversation already happened. It was me, you and mum. And my mahar had been decided, and it was £10,000. Now, when he came into that conversation, at the beginning, he was like, you know, my mum was like, you know, look, just to let you know, your family haven't discussed gold. They've not discussed anything else that they're giving to my daughter.
Yeah.
We've already been married once before. She doesn't have a brother. She doesn't have a dad overhead. I want to know what kind of security you can provide for her.
Yeah.
So then my mum was like, you know, in our family, this is what the girls usually get. So he was like, yeah, that's fine. My mum was like, look, it's this amount, £10,000. Are you okay with that? And he's like, yeah, of course. Like, you know, why wouldn't I be? Like, just like proper showy off, like machoism, you know, very much like, you know, beating his chest like a gorilla, like, I'm the man, of course I can pay 10,000, it's nothing to me, you know. And then, but on that day, he rang me and he was like, look, I can't do 10,000. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I was like, but you agreed to it. And he was like, yeah, I spoke to my parents and they're not happy about it. And I was like, okay, let me put the phone on to my mum. And then my mum was like, you know, look, how much can you afford? Mum was like, don't take the piss though. So then he was like, look, then my family is saying 5,000. Mum was like, look, I'm fine with that, you know. She goes, you know, we're not selling daughters here, we're giving them away. You know. And that happened, so that was that whole palaver, so that was kind of buried. But then I was like, okay, what's going on with the movie? And then he was like, oh, let me speak to my dad and then we'll get back to you. So then his dad sent like an itemized list of everything that he wanted on the nikah. So the first thing that they said, they want the bride with no makeup on. They said they want the nikah after Isha, because their guru had told them that it's probably better for them to do it at this time. My mum was like, are we Muslims or are we Hindus?
Like, you know, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I've never heard of that as well. And my mum was like really confused. And my mum was like really angry as well, because she's like, well, if this is what you guys wanted to do, why didn't you have the decency to come to our house 2 weeks prior and say, look, we kind of want these like requests. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
And my mum was like, if that was the case, why did I spend so much money getting a marquee, getting the food, getting clothes and stuff? Mum goes, I would have just got you lot married in the mosque.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah, no, 100%, yeah,
And
yeah.
you know, my mum was just like really angry, and you know, at the end of the day, she's done everything on her own accord. Like, he didn't pay for anything. Like, my family paid for the whole thing. So, you know, my mum was just really angry, and then, you know, it kicked off. So then it kicked off with, then he passed his phone to his sister. Then I passed the phone to my mum passed the phone to my puppo. His sister started screaming at my puppo. My puppo started screaming at her. Then his sister said something really horrible at my puppo. Then my sister's taken the phone off my puppo, and my sister's swearing at his sister. And then he's taken the phone off his sister, and he's like, "That's it, we're done.
Yeah.
We're not going ahead with this wedding." And I think at that point, I should have just taken my blessing and ran with it.
Yeah.
But then I felt really upset, and I saw the way my mum reacted. And you know, like, I think in that moment, I felt really, really sorry for my mum, because they really cornered her. They really did. They really did. They really put her in a position.
So do you think you did it mostly for your mum?
I think, yeah, a part of me did do it for my mum. I think what a lot of people don't realise is that pressure, you know, that we have. But
Yeah.
ultimately, like, it was my choice. Nobody put a gun to my head. Nobody forced me in that sense. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But yeah, a part of me, obviously, I want to make my mum happy as well. You know,
Yeah.
a part of me does feel like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I think.
So you got married and everything, and
Yeah, so then all that situation happened. Then my mum, then what was funny is that on that day, my family were like, "So what are you doing then?
yeah.
Are you going to get married or not?" And then they weren't budging from their demands. So then I ended up actually having my nikah the night before my actual nikah day.
Right. Okay.
So they came after Isha. I had no makeup on. I had a little bit of lip balm. They read it, and it was funny because I looked at his dad and I was like, "Run me my check.
Yeah.
Where's my 5K
Yeah,
at?"
where's your check, yeah.
And his dad was like, "Did you just get married to my son for the money?"
Mm.
I was like, "Bro, like, have you seen your house? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like, have you seen out your house and where I live? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like, I was just like, you know,
Yeah.
A
okay."
catch, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then I was like, whatever, yeah. So then I was just like, whatever. So then we went ahead, and then the next day of the wedding, everything was fine. Like, I cried, did my rukhsati, whatever. And then that's when I started, like, it was okay. Like, I think the first, even a couple of days of my marriage were okay. So then, you do the tradition where you go back to your mum's house.
Yeah.
So the next day after my wedding was my sister's birthday. So I went to my mum's house, gave her gifts, and then I stayed one night at my in-laws. And then the next day, obviously, back in our apartment.
Yeah.
And basically, because it was COVID, we agreed to not have like a big honeymoon, because I said, you know what, once we've had the valima, we'll do a proper honeymoon. We'll have a bit more money in our pocket
Yeah.
and stuff like that as well.
So you just stayed in the car, and then that's why.
Yeah, and obviously I had my rukhsati as well.
Yeah.
So then what had happened is we agreed that we'll go Ireland for a couple of days, because I said, look, we don't have to get like COVID tests or vaccines or anything like that. So Ireland, you could just even drive there.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me know when you pack for Ireland. And he was like, we're not going. And I said, why? And he's like, I'm broke. I was like, what do you mean you're broke? I said, what happened to that 40 grand? He's like, oh, I've had to give 20 to my sister, and I've had to give 20 to my business partner. Okay, but you just got married.
Just got married, yeah.
Like, and I wasn't working. So I was like, how are we going to fund for everything? He's like, oh, don't worry, I'm expecting some money from my business and stuff. Math went mathing.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's something not right. So I said to him, I was like, can I see your bank account? And I swear to God, he came up to me, he grabbed me from behind my hair, and literally said, don't you ever effing ask about my finances ever again, and slapped me. Right?
Fucking hell.
Honestly, it was like he slapped the confidence out of me.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I thought, I'm in this apartment, it is COVID, I've just got married, I've still got Mendy on my hands, and
Okay,
my
slapped.
husband has just slapped me.
Yeah.
Was there a build up to this slap, or was it just like 0 to like 100?
0 to 100. And I was like, whoa. Because obviously he had sworn at me, and he's like, don't ask about my finances, and he just switched. And he slapped me, and I was like, whoa, what the hell? Like, what do I do here? And then a part of me was taken back, and I felt really like crap. Like, I really did, because I thought, I've just got married to you, and this is how you've reacted. And so that night, like, he slept, so we both slept in the same bed, but halfway through the night I got out of the bed and actually slept on the sofa, because I just didn't want to be even in the same bed as him. And then before he woke up, I snuck back into bed.
Yeah.
And then the next morning he woke up and he was like, oh, I need to go to Aylesbury. I was like, why do you need to go to Aylesbury for? And he was like, oh, I've got to go get the car serviced. I said, okay, I'm not that clued on with cars, but I know a thing or two. And I said, there's Mercedes specialist cars garages everywhere. I was in Preston at the time. I said, you can go Blackburn, you can go Liverpool, you can go Manchester, you can go back to Bradford and go get your stuff sorted. Leeds,
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And he was like, why do you need to go Aylesbury? He goes, I got the car from there, so that's where I need to go. So I said, okay, why don't we do this? I said, we've not been anywhere. We can't go on honeymoon. You broke us crap. Let's just go on a road trip. I said, we've just got newly married. I said, it'll be something fun to do, just for us to get out of the house. No, you're not going with me. And I'm like, okay, how do I diffuse the situation? And I said, why? Why do you not want me to come with you? He goes, I don't want you to come. I just don't want you to come. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to push it.
Yeah.
But then he had the cheek and the audacity to ask me for money.
No.
And then he said to me...
Gas money.
Yeah. And he was like, do you have money? And I said, yeah. And he was like, can I have £150? And in that moment, I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to do something here. So I actually transferred him £300. And I said to him, here's 300. If you need more, you can ask me. And I thought I'd do that to show him that even if the situation is correct, that he is broke, I'm his wife. Like, if he's going through hard times, I should be there for him.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, he's still not apologised for that slap. He still had it, And I still gave him that 300. So he went on his way. He turned off his phone for 2 days. I was worried sick. First and foremost, I lived in the most horrible apartment because there was no service. We had no Wi-Fi.
Nothing.
Right? My family probably thought I was dead, right? And I had to go out of the building to make a phone call. So imagine how many times I left the apartment to go make a phone call, right? And then I spoke to his family. So I spoke to my family first, and I spoke to my cousins. They were like, look, maybe he's got cold feet. Don't annoy him. Maybe, he just needs some time apart.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's fine. And then what happened is I rang his family and they were like, stop annoying him. You must have annoyed him. That's why.
Yeah.
I thought, what the hell? What if I'm married? You know what I mean? Like, what if I'm
exactly.
married?
What are you married, yeah.
And then that happened. And then he came back 2 days later. And he's been really lovey-dovey and like trying to kiss me and hug me. And I'm like, wait a minute. You disappeared for 2 days.
Guilty.
Yeah, 100%. And I was like, what the hell? So he's like, oh, I'm going to take a quick shower. Can you go get me a towel? So I was like, okay. So I've gone to go get him a towel. He's put his phones on charge. He's put his duffel bag down, whatever. And I've gone into the bathroom. And all I've seen is like hickeys all over his neck and scratch marks all down his back.
Flipping out.
Right?
For fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's what I see. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, do I slash my own throat or do I slash his? And in that moment, I was so angry, and I thought, you know what, I need to go through his phone, because that's where all the shit has been previous, right? So I went through his personal, clean as a whistle. I thought, where's that business phone?
Yeah.
Where's that business phone? Let me find it. So I went through the duffel bag, found the business phone. Oh yeah, there was business on there, all right. There was some business on there, all right. And there was a message. The top message was, thank you for that £150, and it was a woman.
Wow.
I was so angry. I was like, I cannot believe this man.
Well, why didn't you just leave him there and then? I don't understand.
It was hard because I was just like, you know what? There was just so much, and like a lot of me was insecure because I thought I was a big girl. Maybe I could do better. A lot of these things went through my mind. I thought, I've just got married. I can't just give up on it straight away.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So then I seen this message, and I've scrolled up, and I've seen like nudes. I've seen like aubergine pictures, and loads of other things, and I was just like, wow. And all the messages like, thank you for 10 grand, thank you for 5 grand, thank you for 25 grand. I was like, what the hell? What is he doing to that? I was like, I haven't got my married yet. Like, you know what I mean?
Man's been like, giving money out to random people.
Yeah, and I was like, what the hell? Like, you know what I mean? And then I thought, you know what? In a man's phone, ladies, listen to me very carefully now. If you cannot find anything in his messages, always check the camera roll, because you will definitely find something in a camera roll, right? So I looked through his camera roll, and there was a screenshot of his first wife's Instagram. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go through the I messaged her. Yeah. I messaged first wife. I was like, hi, like, I know you were married to my current husband. I'm not here to tread on any eggshells. I'm just trying to basically find some answers to some questions I may have. And she literally just texted me back saying, it's too late. And I said, what do you mean it's too late? She's like, you're married to him. She's like, look, I don't want to get involved. You're married to him. That's your marriage. That's your sort of, not my circus, not my monkey sort of thing. Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? No, like, I need you to answer me these questions. And I said to her, I said, look, you know, when you were married to him, was he ever abusive? And she said, no, not physically, but maybe verbally, yeah. And she said, what do you know about me? And I said, well, he told me that you guys went to primary school together, your family fell into a bit of money, and then you moved to Wales. So she moved to Conway in North Wales, and then you rekindled through Facebook. And she told me that they rekindled through Facebook. They met. He told me that, you know, they were young. I think he was like 19, 20, 21, that around that age. You fell pregnant before you got married, and then you know, you had to get married because obviously you were pregnant. So she was a Hindu Gujarati girl, and so she like reverted to Islam, and then what happened is, and then, you know, that was it, and then your family got involved, and, you know, there was tiffs, and I said, that's what he's told me. She said, no, first and foremost, she goes, don't ever refer to my son as our son. I thought, oh my God, what's this guy done? What has this guy done?
Wow.
She's declaiming his sperm completely.
Wow.
I was like, what has this guy done? Right? And then she was like, so I told her that this is what I know. And she was like, no, that is not the story. She goes, the first part of it's correct. You know, I met him through Facebook and all of that. But she's like, after I got married to him, that's when it all went downhill. She then proceeded to tell me that the first time she did fall pregnant, she ended up miscarrying that baby. And then she fell pregnant for the second time, which was their now son. And I was like, okay. And then she said, I fell pregnant for the third time, but I got an abortion. I was like, why? She was like, you don't know anything, do you? And I was like, no, that's why I'm messaging you. I want to know. And she's like, well, you know, whilst I was pregnant for the second time, he was on holiday in Sharm el Sheikh with another girl, spending my money.
Wow.
And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, the whole time I was pregnant, and then I even post like giving birth, she said he used to blackmail me and say, if you don't give me X amount of money, I'm going to take the kid off you. Now, obviously being a girl from North Wales, you know, been away from like sort of Bradford, like, you know, the thug culture, and knowing like how to be street smart, she gave it to him because she was scared. You know, she thought this big bad guy from Bradford's coming, you know, and, you know, he's going to take my kid off me. And she got scared, so she gave him money. And then what happened is that she's telling me this story, and, you know, I'm just in shock, like, a little bit, because I'm like, whoa, like, this is what happened. And she said, you know, the third time when I got an abortion, like, I didn't want, you know, my child that was already going through it for another child to go through it. That's why I got an abortion. And I thought, oh my God, that takes some balls of steel to do. Like, as a mother, like, I feel like I don't even have a kid, but I'm very maternal, and I feel like for me to be able to take that step as a woman, like, you've got to be, you know, you've got to have some kind of like steel ball sat in your heart, you know, for you to do that to yourself, you know, to put yourself in a situation like that, you know. And when she told me that, I really felt it for her. And then she said, well, it got worse because then after sort of post like having my second kid and then getting the abortion and then finding out that he's got a girlfriend on the side, you know, it just got predominantly worse. And she said then basically I got the police involved and he got done for a blackmail charge.
Okay.
And I said, what do you mean blackmail? I said, so has he gone to prison? And she's like, yeah, did you not know? And I was like, no. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, he got 5 years. And I said, did you do the full 5? And she just sent me a TNA article. And it's there, written in black and white, what he did. And then I'm reading it, but the TNA article is for a different charge. And I'm asking her, and I'm like, but this is a different charge. And she's like, yeah, well, the situation is that, you know, after his second marriage.
Oh my God.
After his second marriage, this is what he did. And I was like, wait a minute, am I not the second wife? She goes, no, hon, you're the third.
Oh, flipping heck.
The rabbit hole goes deeper and deeper. Yeah.
I was like, what? And she's like, yeah. So then she's telling me that basically the second marriage lasted 6 months. He beat her black and blue. He got payday loans in her name. He got credit cards in her name. He got overdrafts in her name with different bank accounts. And then what he actually got done for was fraud. So basically, she used to go to the police and say, "Look, he's hitting me." Obviously, country is abysmal when it comes to DV, and and then basically what had happened is, then she had enough and she snitched on him, and then she told the police that this is the scam that he's running. So the scam was, oh my god, it's so funny. So he was running a scam, saying on Gumtree, saying that he's selling Chanel handbags for 250 quid. First and foremost, I don't know which dumb woman thought that you could get a Chanel handbag for 250 pounds. And then, secondly, he was doing bank transfers. So women were transferring the money. And the accounts that he was doing it into was his mum's, his brother's, and his own account, right?
Flipping heck.
But the cherry on top of the freaking cake is, right, is that, you know, the number that's connected to the Gumtree account, it was registered at his home address because it was a contract firm. I mean...
Oh, come on.
My 17-year-old sister could have done a better job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bit
and
like
then,
the one.
so then he was on licence because he'd come out of prison, so he'd done... It was a 5-year charge for blackmail, so he did 2, came out, and then he met his second wife, and then he was on licence, and then he got charged, and then he got charged with 12 accounts of theft and fraud.
Flipping heck.
Right.
This guy was something else then.
And the worst part is, he came out of prison in May 2020, I met him in June 2020, I got engaged to him in July 2020, I was married to him by August 2020.
All fabrication, all lies.
Yeah. And I was just like, what the hell?
So was it at that point that you decided, right, that's it?
No.
Oh.
I still stayed with him for another 4 months prior.
Flipping heck. I don't know how he did that.
You know what it was? I thought, you know what? Okay, fine. He's done all these things. Everyone has a past.
Yeah, maybe they can change, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I had that optimistic approach that maybe I will be the third time lucky, you know? I will be the hat trick to his madness, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be the woman that'll change him. I was so wrong. So wrong. And then, you know, I confronted him about it, and after we had the conversation, he beat me black and blue.
Fucking hell.
And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. And I became really isolated.
Yeah.
Because he was constantly beating me. He kind of when someone is physically abusive to you like that, they physically beat out your confidence. They physically beat out your personality. You know, you kind of go into a shell version of yourself. You go in a survival mode version of yourself. So then I thought, oh my God, what are we going to do? He's broke. He's a criminal. He's been married twice before. He doesn't provide for his child. I was just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So then I ended up getting a job full time. So I started working for Legal Aid. And I worked for the Defence Solicitor Call Centre in Preston.
Yeah.
And I worked there whilst trying to maintain being in my final year of uni and cooking and cleaning. Like, he didn't do anything. He was the most laziest man I've ever met. Like, he would not even pick up his own plate.
So man, just leave it there.
And leave it there. And I'd come back from work and I'd be like, come on, man. Like,
Well,
I've just been at work. Like, I went to work at, get up at 7 in the morning. I'd be at work from, 9 to 5, come home. And I'd cook. I'd do the laundry. I'd clean. You know, he wouldn't even make the bed. Like, he was that lazy, you know. And I was just like, what the hell? Like, what am I doing? And it would be so sad because, I would be sat in bed with my MacBook, doing my uni work. And I'd fall asleep in my MacBook. And he didn't even have the decency to be like, you know what? My wife's fallen asleep. She's shattered. Let me move the laptop. Yeah. I'd wake up and the laptop's still there in my face, you know. So, and it was horrible. And then it just got bad from worse. You know, then I went to work one day and I saw a massive transaction had come out of my bank account. And I said to him, I said, have you got my bank card? And I looked at my purse and I couldn't find my bank card. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, but you've just taken £700 out of my account. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, what for? And he's like, oh, I just needed to get something. What with the £700? Then 2 days later, I was doing some laundry and I found a Grosvenor casino card, membership card in his pocket.
Wow. So he's been gambling as well.
So he had an extreme gambling addiction. Roulette, blackjack,
everything.
Just everything.
Yeah.
Bar probably the slot machines, you know what I mean? Probably too bougie for that. But yeah, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm with a gambler. And then it just got bad, and it got from bad to worse. And then he started beating me if I didn't give him money. And then what happened is, I went to my mum's one day, and she's like, you're bruising, you know, what's going on? You know, and I said, Mum, don't worry about it, you know, I don't want you to worry. And, you know, then he flipped it on me. He's like, oh, Auntie, you don't know, she hits me first, you know, you don't understand, the amount of stuff I have to go through with her. So I left it. I thought, you know what, I don't want to stress my mum out. I don't want her to know.
So did you speak to anyone else about this domestic violence?
No, I was too scared.
No, too scared of it. No,
I was too scared. I was like, you know what? I don't want anyone to think that, you know, it's because of me or anything like that, or I'm not doing anything correctly. And he'd put so much fear in me that I was like, where do I go? Like, I've never had a male figure in my life that I could feel like, you know what, I could turn around, because a man like that can only be resolved with another man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, exactly,
what can women do? I've come from a very female-oriented, dominated family. You know, I always say all the men in my family are dead or divorced.
Yeah.
You know, which is true.
I think what he did was he took advantage of the fact that there's no male in your family.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's a sad thing that, you know, we live in a society where that is still there. Like, nobody has the fear of God anymore. You know, they're not fearful of what their afterlife's going to look like. They're just thinking in that current moment.
Yeah. But a lot of women do go through these kind of situations where they're silenced and they don't really speak about it.
Yeah.
More so in actually men as well. A lot of men do get abused, but men obviously don't really talk about this kind of stuff as well. But more so the women, they are silenced because they are scared of something else might happen. They'll get stabbed or killed or choked or something, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
So, you know, it's a bit of a shitty situation when you can't really speak on what's going on. You can't.
Yeah, and it's even sadder when you feel like you know, as when you feel like you have that conscious effort to hold that responsibility as a woman, like not to worry anybody else as well. You know, because in my head I thought, my mum's a single parent, she's got 2 other daughters to worry about.
Yeah.
Like, do I really want to burden her with my crap? You know what I mean? Probably not. Like, it's my marriage, I wholeheartedly decided to get into it. You know, I'm not going to burden my mum like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, my mum was like, go to the doctors and go get a blood test. So I went to go have a blood test done, and I had a minute cough, and then the Friday I was showing symptoms of COVID. Right, and then I said to my ex, I was like, look, can you take me to, you know, one of those test centers, the drive-through COVID test centers?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. And I said, well, you're gonna have to take one as well because you've been living with me. So on the Sunday we both got our results, we were both positive. But then on Monday I got a phone call from the doctor, and the doctor was like, well, we have good news and bad news, what would you like to hear first? I said, give me the bad news first. And she was like, well, you probably already know because we've had to shut the doctor's surgery down, but you had COVID, by the way. And I said, yeah, no, I'm suffering through it now. She said, but the good news is you're pregnant.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, oh. And she's like, why are you not taking that like good news? And I said, no, I am happy. She said, you know, like, you suffer from polycystic ovarian syndrome, you know, PCOS, you know, you had this fear that you'll never be able to conceive, and, you know, you found it really, like, you're going to find it really difficult, but, you know, you're pregnant. And I said, well, how far am I? And she's like, 3 months. And I was like, oh, damn. I was like, that means I literally fell pregnant on my wedding night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, damn, that shit only happens in Bollywood films.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, what the hell? So then a part of me was like conflicted because I was happy that I was pregnant, but then I was sad because I knew he was the father.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, how is this going to pan out? So then I rang all my closest, my nearest and dearest, all my friends, my family. They were all happy for me. They were really like over the moon. They were like, you know, we can't wait. I was like, Mom, you're going to be a grandma, you know. Like, I was so happy. And in that moment, I just couldn't think of anything but the baby. And then what had happened is I then rang his family. And then his family proceeded to be racist. And his family were like, we don't want the baby, you know. And I was like, well, you know what you got married to. Like, you know what you got your son married to. And she's like, if you come to our house, this was his older sister. She was like, if you come to our house, I'll push you down a set of stairs, you know. Considering we had an agreement in place with my ex that obviously Monday to Friday I'd be in Preston with him. But then on the weekends we'd spend at my in-laws.
Yeah.
Now, every Friday when I used to go to my in-laws, and my in-laws were a big family. Like, there was around 8 of them. I'd take a big vat of food that I'd cooked. So they don't feel like, oh, we have an oldest daughter-in-law, but she doesn't really contribute.
Yeah.
And I used to make separate food for that individual sister-in-law's kids. Because I felt sorry for them.
Yeah.
I thought, you know what, like, his mother's a bit, like, old-school Bangladeshi woman, you know, she's going to make curries and rice, you know, and I thought, you know, they're kids, they deserve to have, like, pastas and lasagnas and, you know, just, like, food like tacos and stuff like this, fun stuff that they should be eating and trying to explore different food. And I just felt that for them, you know. I thought they're kids, they would probably want these kind of foods.
Yeah. What I don't understand is obviously his family knew what he's been doing, and no one had the decency to tell you exactly.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, had the decency to tell you, like, look, this guy's been doing this all these years. now we want him to change. Can you, obviously, we want you to help him change or something. You know, something like that.
But
It's like a decent thing to say.
it's
You know.
that toxic South Asian culture like that we live in. It's like, oh, you know, like that's my son. Eh, mera putter hai. You know, like I hate that term. I absolutely despise that term. Oh, mera putter hai. Your putter's a waste, man. Sort him out. Do you know what I mean? That's your responsibility as a parent to sort your putter out, your ladla putter. I was like, if your putter's been so good, then why has he not sorted himself out? He's almost hitting 30.
Yeah.
Because I was 23, he was 29. You know, you're like at a pivotal point in your life where this is a make or break. You know, like, okay, I've been through 2 failed marriages. I have a son. You know, where do I go from here?
Grow the fuck up, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? That's what you need to do.
It really hurt me that his family were so like anti against me after everything that I'd done for them. You know, it really, really hurt me, and I just thought, wow.
Yeah.
So then, obviously, because I didn't tell him, he was the last person to find out, by the way.
Yeah.
And then he came charging in. What have you said to my sister? Blah blah. I said, look, I just said what any other woman who's carrying a child would say. I said to her that as long as I'm pregnant and as long as I have this child inside of me, you're never going to be able to see this child. I said, how dare you talk about my child that way? You know, I said, I've treated your children like they were my own kids.
Kids, yeah, exactly.
I said, how dare you do that to me? You know, and he got really angry, he got really vexed. And he proceeded to punch me in the face. And then he started beating me, and then he pushed me into a wardrobe. And then I started having pains in my belly, but I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just maybe cramps or anything like that. I then proceeded to work a 12-hour shift, and whilst having cramps. Yeah. And then basically they got worse. They got really, really bad. So then I texted one of my work colleagues and I said, look, I was really embarrassed because it got to that point where my husband at the time had blocked me off everywhere. He blocked my number, he blocked me off WhatsApp.
So he wasn't living with you at the time?
He was back and forth. Whenever he felt like he wanted to come, he came.
Okay. Right.
Whenever he didn't want to
wherever
be there,
suits him.
Yeah, wherever it suits him. It was like an open hotel for him, you know. And obviously it hurt me. Like I was like, you know what, I'm going through these pains. I'm his pregnant wife, you know, and he's not here. And then you know, my work colleague rang him and said, like, you know, like your wife's going through these pains, you know, she's pregnant, like you should be there. He's like, fuck that, bro, I'm not going. You know, and I was just like, you know what the hell am I going to do now? So then I ended up going to the hospital, and I've sent him a picture to his sister, and I said, look, I'm in the hospital, tell your brother to get here, because he had the keys, so I couldn't look at the flat. I just literally got to the hospital.
Yeah.
I got to the hospital and I'm messaging him saying, like, look, I need my keys, you know, where are they? Oh, I don't have them. I was like, well, can I get them back? Because once I get discharged from the hospital, I'll need them. I was like, did you lock it? And he's like, yeah, I've locked the flat. I said, okay, so how am I meant to get back in if you've got the keys? Oh, I don't have them. For ages. Whilst I'm sat in A&E, by the way. And there's like, luckily it was dead. Like there was probably like 2 or 3 people sat in there.
Yeah.
This is COVID time. I'm literally in a wheelchair because I'm getting such severe cramps. He's thrown the keys into A&E and I've literally crawled to go get the keys. Because I could not physically walk. And he's like, you're a fucking psycho. Here, take him.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, cool. And then I remember I proceeded to go into the hospital. They took all my bloods, they did all my ops and stuff like that. And then the doctor said, like, there's 3 options that have happened here. He said, either you're not actually 3 months pregnant, you're a little bit less because your HCG hormone level is a bit low. So we don't think you may be 3 months pregnant, you might be a little bit less than that.
Yeah.
The doctor then said, and then the second option is you're having something called an ectopic pregnancy, which is basically where the egg attaches itself outside of the fallopian tube. And that pregnancy is a waste anyway.
Yeah.
Because either they have to remove the fallopian tube, and I was 3 months, so probably they would have had to. And you're having that pregnancy. Third option was like you've had a miscarriage and you've not even realised.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm praying for the first option.
Yeah.
Any woman in that situation probably would.
Yeah.
They said, look, but we can't tell now. They said you're going to have to come back in 48 hours so we can kind of like assess you.
Yeah.
And take your bloods again. I thought it's COVID. I don't want to be sat in a hospital for 2 days. You know what I mean? I thought let me go back home and rest. I've got back home, and I've had a sleep because obviously I was up till stupid o'clock in the morning. I got discharged at like 6 o'clock in the morning or something, and then I went home and I woke up and then I went to the toilet and all I saw was blood, and I was like shit. I've miscarried.
You already miscarried, yeah.
And then, honestly, like, it was so traumatic for me. So traumatic for me because I was like, I have no one here and I'm going through this on my own. So I rang my family, I rang some of my cousins, female cousins who have gone through a miscarriage before, and I was like, look, this is what I'm going through. They're like, you know, you need to get to the hospital. And they said what the hospital suggested, and they said, treat it like a period. And I was like, what? Like, is that what the advice you're giving me? And they're like, there's nothing much we can do here. And then I was like, my cousin was like, no, what are you talking about? Like, you need to get to the hospital because if that blood gets infected, you can get like sepsis and all this kind of diseases.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, fine. So then my family were ringing him saying, she's had a miscarriage, you need to go. Now, at that point, like, my family are on the phone to me, somebody's speaking to me, and I've got a cousin who I'm really close with, is similar age to me, he's a male cousin, we've kind of grown up together, and, you know, he was saying to me that, you know, I know he's done this, you know, I can't wait to see him, blah, blah. And whilst he's saying that, my ex has walked through the door, and he's on loudspeaker, and he's heard all of this, and he's like, oh, do you know what, F this, and he's done a U-turn, he's literally come in, he's done a U-turn and walked straight back out. So I waited for an ambulance for 5 hours in COVID, then they came, went to the hospital by myself, had my, like, they basically, it's basically, the best way to describe it is they clamp you, and they scrape you like a scoop dinner, and that's how a miscarriage works. And obviously I was traumatized, and then I was in the hospital alone, and then eventually, like, I literally begged him and cried to him. I was like, look, I've got no one. Please just at least come into the hospital and just hold my hand. Just be a human being. I don't care if you're not my husband, you're not my friend, you don't want to do anything. I said, just as a human being, please be there for me. You know, just hold my hand. And then at least I can say to them, you're my husband, and, you know, I've got some form of support.
Yeah.
As soon as we got to the hospital, he goes, well, what are you going to do now? I said, what do you mean? Are you not going to look after me? He's like, nah, not really, to be honest.
Wow.
And I just said, okay, fine. So I rang my best friend. She came in clutch. And he dropped me off to Oldham. That's where she's from. I stayed there for a bit. And then he was like, okay, I'm coming back to Preston. He's like, I'll drop you off. He dropped me off. And then I said to him, I don't want you to be here. I said, I just want to grieve on my own. I said, go back to Bradford. So then I was on my own. And then my friends came over. My close friends from Preston. And she came over, and she came with her sisters, and she just literally was like, is there anything that needs doing? And I was like, no. And then she just started shouting at her sister, saying, do this, do that, do this, do that. And honestly, like, I can never be, like, there's never enough amount of gratitude that I can ever give to her and her sisters, because they helped me. Everyone who helped me at that moment in my life, like, you know, I've got nothing but love for them. They did so much for me. And, you know, to the grand scheme of things, they might think they've done nothing, but for me, that meant everything, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so then that happened. I had my miscarriage. He still continued to beat me. I started smoking cigarettes. And he basically didn't like that. He's like, I never married a woman who started smoking cigarettes. And I said, well, how pathetic is my life that I get more support from a cigarette than my husband, you know?
Yeah.
And he then just got more aggressive. And I just said to my family, I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
My family begged me. They were like, no, Kainaat, like, you've only been married 4 months, 5 months. You know, you can't just give up on your marriage. And I just was like, but I can't do this anymore. Physically, I cannot
you can't
do this anymore.
You're getting abused, you know.
Yeah, and I was just like, no, I've lost my child.
Yeah.
I can't do this, you know.
Yeah.
And my family were like, just give him one more chance. So then I was like, okay. But then I stopped giving a shit about him. I stopped cooking for him. I stopped cleaning. I stopped doing everything. And then he realised, he had the moment of realisation that he was like, shit,
yeah.
What have I done? You know, and then that happened, and then basically when that happened, he then, he got a job, and he started working, and he was doing all the things that I wanted him to do, but I didn't care for him anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't love him anymore.
Yeah,
I didn't give a shit about him anymore.
It's when a woman cares so much, and then they come to a point where the feelings just shut off.
Yeah, and that basically is what happened.
Yeah.
And then he scammed someone out of £3,000. I didn't know at the time. He said he was doing a job for someone, but he never delivered. He was making a website for someone.
Right.
And then it was actually the guy that we used to get our shisha from. He used to come deliver it to our apartment.
Okay.
And he did the whole thing like, oh, I'm Bengali, brother, you're Bengali, like, you know, we'll figure something out. He goes, brother, I'm looking for someone who does website. He goes, oh, brother, I do the... And Bajara took like $3,000 off that guy. And then he rang me saying, "Oh, I've got paid from that website job."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh, right, okay, good, like good for you."
Yeah.
He's like, "Let's go to Cuba."
Yeah.
I was like, "What? You want to go Cuba?" Yeah, random.
What does he wanna-
He goes, "Well, I'll book 2 tickets. We'll go Cuba right now." I was like, "What?" I said, "You're a licensed mate. Oh, you get another country." Do you know what I mean? I said, "No way." And then he's like, "Oh, he goes, "I'll go through Ireland," and then I'll go, "Don't ever mention Ireland to me ever again. I'm traumatized, right?" So then, and then he was like, "Oh, right." And then I said, "Did you know?" And then a light bulb moment came in my head. I said, "Why don't we go shopping?" Right?
Yeah.
This is Christmas Eve. So why don't we go shopping? He goes, "All right, okay, that's fine." He was willing to do whatever at that point, right? I was like, sweet. I picked up this, I picked up that, I picked up plenty of pockets, I picked up not these ones, by the way. These ones I bought myself. So then I just went on a shopping spree. I was like, that $3,000, you were going $3,000 lighter, right? So then on Christmas Day, he's like, "Oh, I want Christmas dinner and stuff like that." So I made Christmas dinner. And he's like, "Oh, can I call my friend?" I said, "Okay, go call your friend. Go bring him here." So he's called his friend. He's brought his friend, and his friend's drunk. And I was like, you claim to be all religious, but your friend's drunk out of his trees. You know what I mean? And it just gave me like off vibes. Like, we're reading Mars in this house. Can you not please bring him here?
Yeah.
You know. So I was like, "Look, have your dinner, then drop him back home." He's like, "Why don't you come with me?" I said, "No, I'm not coming in the car with him like that." He's like, "Oh, please, please, please." I said, "No." I said, "Leave the keys here. I'll open the door when you get back." I basically locked the door, put all his stuff outside the door, and sent him a massive text message saying, "Don't ever come back. Thanks for all the shit you bought me, but get the fuck out of my house now."
You did right. You did right.
And then, because I was paying for all the bills.
Yeah,
Ever since we got married, I paid for the rent, I paid for all the direct debits, I paid for all the utility bills, I paid for the grocery shops. What did he do?
Yeah,
Apart
nothing.
from giving me a headache.
Yeah, exactly.
For the past so many months. So then, so then that happened, and then I kicked him out, and then he just became completely aggressive, banging on the door. He left rats in a bag outside my apartment. He left rubbish outside my apartment. He came the next day saying, "I want to break your face, open the freaking door, call the police." He tried ringing my landlord, asking them for a separate key. They said, "Look, we can't give you it if you're not the tenancy holder."
Yeah.
I said, "Don't you dare give him a key,"
Yeah.
right? So they're like, "We can't, not without your permission." I was like, "Yep,
Yeah.
I know that."
Yeah.
So then he went, whilst the police came and they were taking my statement, he's made a social media account on Instagram, and he's like crucifying me on that. He's putting up videos, personal videos of me, like, you know, dressed in certain ways, and you know, like when you're at home as a woman, you're a married woman, you can wear whatever the hell you like, you know, and that's the comfort of your home, and that's the privacy between you and your husband. It's not there for you to be ridiculed and put online. And then obviously this account that he made, he followed all my family from Pakistan, he followed, you know, my family and friends from here, people that I'd gone to school with, work colleagues. Like, it was embarrassing. It was really embarrassing for me, and you know, making it out like, you know, I was an absolute psychopath. Like, it was such a manipulative twat. Like, in terms of like what had happened is there was a situation where I was curling my hair to go to my mum's, and I said to him, you know, "Go take the clothes out the washing machine." And he's like, "Okay, where shall I put them? Because all the baskets are full." I said, "Look, just pop it on the coffee table and the dining table. They're both clean."
Yeah.
Next minute, you know, I'm curling my hair and I can smell something burning. And I've looked at the stove and it's his clothes on fire, right? I've grabbed them with the tongs and thrown them in the bath. But then the next minute I've seen is he's whipped out his phone and he's like, "Look at this crazy bitch burning my clothes." And I was like, wow. You are a different league of psycho. And then that happened. He made the Instagram account. He's putting these videos up. Obviously, people are ringing me. Then what happened is, one day, my electric wasn't coming on. So I'm like, what the hell? Like, I paid all my bill. Like, you know, the fuse box is fine, whatever.
Yeah.
So then I've rang one of my friends and they've called out an electrician. The electrician's gone to the service meter room and he goes, "Where's the mains for your apartment?" So I showed him. He goes, "Someone's taken the fuse out."
Oh.
And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Look, I'll do it for you. Don't worry, I'll sort it out." It's okay, wicked. So then I've gone back into my flat. The second day, he's done it again.
Yeah.
He's taken the fuse out. But then I've gone into the service meter room and I've looked where it is and I'm like, I'm 5'1", I ain't gonna reach that. So I went back to my flat to grab a stool or a chair or something. As I'm walking out the service meter room box, the room, whatever, I see a man in a balaclava coming out from the stairs. He's like, "We need to talk." I've got nothing to say to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you. Why? Come to your flat now. Let's talk. I don't want to say anything to you. All I see is like a pocket knife come out from his pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you still don't want to talk? I've literally started walking backwards now. And luckily I have my phone on me. And I'm trying to do that emergency thing on an iPhone, you know, when you press the power button 3 times.
Yeah.
And before I could do that, I've tripped over myself.
Yeah.
And then what's happened is, before I could call it, he's grabbed the phone out of my hand and he stabbed me in my arm.
In your arm?
Yeah. And he stabbed me in my arm with a penknife. And I'm literally running after him. Like, the adrenaline sets in now. I'm like, shit. All my evidence, everything that I've got against him is in that phone.
Yeah.
I'm running, I'm screaming, like, someone stop him, someone stop him, someone stop him. And then, you know, I was like, what the hell? Like, what do I do now? What do I do now? And, you know, then he's got off, he's ran fast, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then next minute, you know, this lady just taps me on the shoulder. She goes, you know, you got a knife in your arm. And I literally looked down. I've thrown up and I've passed out. An ambulance was called and everything. It was just a whole palaver. And then, you know, I was looking on Find My iPhone where the iPhone was. And yeah, and then I found, like, you know, the location changed. Yeah, that happened. And yeah, and then obviously, then basically a warrant went out for his arrest.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, I think 2 days later, they arrested him. They found him on the back roads of Blackburn. And in the boot of his car, they found an axe, black bags, rubber gloves, compost, shovel.
Oh my God.
And
what a fucking psycho guy, man.
In the boot of his car.
Wow.
And then, and then obviously, I went to court in 2021. So this all happened at the beginning of 2021. I went to court in February. And then I got a restraining order. And he got charged with 1 account of common assault. But the original offences were 3 counts of common assault, theft, harassment, and GBH without intent. But he only got charged with the 1 common assault because the solicitor said to me he only needs 1, but he wasn't pleading guilty. So he only needed like 1 offence in magistrates to, you know, go get sent down.
Yeah.
But also they deduct the time that you've already done when you were like remanded. So in total he only had to do another a month and a half in prison. And then I got a restraining order and that was it. And that was it, and that was the end of it. And never seen him, never spoken to him again.
Well, good riddance, because that guy was absolutely a tool. Because
listen, no, you got away with it.
Yeah,
honestly, you got away with it.
Yeah, even at this point, I'm gonna go as far as saying that you actually got away with it. This is heavy, man.
Heavy, it was heavy, man.
Shit.
Yeah.
Flipping out. I swear to God, like the fact that you're sat over here.
Yeah.
I think you should consider yourself lucky.
Oh yeah, 100%. I can't look.
And I know you. I know you're going through a lot of shit. Yeah, you know, a lot of trauma, a lot of like, you know, obviously psychological trauma, and obviously physical and all sorts, right? But I think you should actually consider yourself lucky.
Oh yeah. 100%.
And people like him.
Oh, he's remarried now.
Oh my
Yeah, he got remarried recently.
See, the thing is, I feel really sorry for
that girl. Yeah, 100%. I feel really sorry for that girl.
Well, when people are going through this kind of situation, you need to speak. I know it's hard to speak about whatever you're going through, but you need to basically push yourself and talk to someone about it, because otherwise you're going to be stuck in the same position.
Oh yeah, 100%. I look back at that 23, 24-year-old me. I think I would say to her, like, as soon as it happened, you should have told someone.
Yeah, but it's obviously in the situation you can't really.
But it's hard.
You're stuck.
Like they
you know
say,
what I mean?
that there's a statistic that to leave an abusive partner, it takes about 7 to 9 tries. And that was me. I am that statistic. That was me. I tried leaving, but then I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it financially? All of this, like, you know. But I'm quite blessed, alhamdulillah, like, you know, I got out of it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thriving now, and I'm in such a better place, you know.
You know what though? It's easier said than done. Like, you know, easy for somebody who's never been in that situation to say, "Oh, you should have left him." You know, at the first line. Listen, it's
hard.
It's not.
It's hard. It is really hard.
There's a lot of emotions.
Emotions. You know, your own insecurities. You know, your own confidence. A lot of that comes into play.
You know what? I think. Look at where you are now. You should be very proud of that.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful.
And upwards and onwards. I think you're on a trajectory at the moment where you're gonna smash
Yeah,
it.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, like in terms of like now, like I talk online, like I talk about body positivity because it stemmed from that. Had I been confident in myself, had I loved myself, had I had that self love, I would have never probably even ended up in that position.
Yeah.
And that's why I so much promote loving yourself, self love, having that sort of platform. And I love the fact that I have a platform that I can openly talk about these things now, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
kind of be that sort of voice of reckoning with a lot of women who might feel like that, a lot of women who may doubt themselves and may feel like, because they're a curvaceous woman or, they're a sort of bigger girl, that there might not be anybody there like that. But forget all that. Love yourself, and someone out there will love you for exactly who you are.
Yeah. But I think what we'll do is, would you be happy if you to come on again?
Yeah,
I would love to have you on again
Yeah,
because the
yeah.
thing is, this podcast was be like 40-minute long, believe it or not. It's ended up being a bit longer because your story was just so captivating,
Yeah.
unbelievably, right? But yeah, I think we should do like a
Yeah,
part two.
pause.
Yeah,
100%.
Because thing is, like, I can't believe that guy. He was a psycho.
Yeah.
He was actually a psycho.
Yeah, he was an actual psychopath.
Yeah.
I always think the Tinder swindler was based on him.
It's crazy.
My enemies are after
Wow.
me.
I can't believe if that woman knew that she's married. I just feel
Well,
sorry
I
for
did
her.
get a message on TikTok from her friend saying that, my friend's about to marry this guy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, go to the police, go get something called Claire's Law or Sarah's Law. And for any women that are going out there who are doubtful of their partners, go to the police. You can invoke this. You can give, as long as you've got their full government name, you can go to the police and you can go find out anything. And if they've got any criminal convictions in touch of like, sexual offences, paedophilia, any of the sort, human trafficking, anything, absolutely anything, you can go find that
It
out.
all comes up, yeah.
Yeah, it all comes up.
That's fine. Well, that's good to know. Like for the what's it called again?
Claire's Law and Sarah's Law.
Right, and it's like something that a person can do there.
Yeah, so you can go to any police station and say, look, this is so and so. I'm their partner, or I'm speaking to them.
Yeah.
I've got my doubts. Can you just clear them
It's
for
like,
me?
it's like a background check they
Yeah.
can do. Right, cool. That's fine.
And it's available for anybody
cool.
to invoke.
Okay. On that note, I think we'll end it there
Yeah.
for now.
I
And
think I need to go home and just like
cuddle in bed.
put on my pillow, man.
Oh, bless you guys.
Right. Yeah, guys. Honestly,
it's
I
okay.
really appreciate
Oh,
it.
no,
honestly.
thank you for having me on.
And normally, like, there's me that does quite a lot of talking, the bouncer as well. This time we just shut the fuck up.
We just listen to
We're
your
like,
story.
Right, okay, this is very interesting.
Yeah. It's quite
honest-
like a deep-setted story, though, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I think, from my story, if anything anyone's going to learn is that, first and foremost, don't rush into anything in life. And secondly, like, when you go through a calamity like that or something so severe like that, just vocalize it, speak to someone, And
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that I could say is that I wish I was more open. Like, my friends knew, and they knew about the trauma and everything that I went through, but there was things that I hid, and I wish I just was so transparent with everyone about it from the get-go, because maybe I wouldn't have ended up in this position that I did end up in. So.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. I think.
wrap it up then.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thank
honestly,
you
once again for
guys.
coming on. Really appreciate it,
No,
and hopefully
appreciate
we're gonna see you again.
Yeah, inshallah.
Yeah.
Right, guys.
Take
See you
care.
later, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye bye.